Seafront Douglas, Isle of Man in early May. The annual tourist rush is barely underway. The perfect opportunity to explore the island's unique transport system before the crowds come, to snooze in deck chairs on the beach or along the prom. I'd made the trip with colleagues Andrew Sharps and John Faulkner. Not so much train spotters, more lovers of old things really. That's why they get on so well with me.
Yes. Do you want to go get a cup of tea? Yeah.
First stop is the Isle of Man Steam Railway's rather grand terminus in Douglas. Still only a shadow of its former glory when holidaymakers in their thousands flocked aboard the train to destinations all over the island. Now there's only one route left. The engines running on the tiny 3-foot narrow gauge tracks were all built by Bayer Peacock in Manchester, and some are almost as old as the line itself, which was opened in August 1874. Waiting for the off at Douglas Station, the cameras roll and the passengers pose. But this is just one small part of the island's unique transport infrastructure. There are horse-drawn trams in the summer, an electric railway to the second town, Ramsey, and the famous mountain railway to Snaefell.
They say that when you come to the Isle of Man, it's like stepping back in history. And that's certainly true if you come aboard the Isle of Man Steam Railway. This dear old line runs between the capital Douglas for 15 miles down to Port Erin through some stunning countryside. And that's what we're about now.
The passing loop, the place where the trains cross on the single-track line, is at the former island capital Castletown. This is a busy place now, but in the old days there were also trains to the west coast town of Peel, as well as a long route to the north of the island and Ramsey. With a name like Castletown, you'd expect a castle. Castle Rushen was once the ancient fortress home of the kings and lords of Man, and dates from 1340. line's terminus, Port Erin, always highly favoured as a major holiday destination in the tourist heyday. Thousands would flock here, and the Grand Station building still stands as a monument to those glory days. Now, enthusiasts flock to the Railway Museum, while thirsty engines rest in the afternoon sun. Port Erin has a safe and sheltered sandy beach with a grand promenade, and in early May you can definitely enjoy the surroundings alone. Beyond Port Erin, at the southwestern tip of the island, the Calf of Man, an islet of some 600 acres, has become a popular destination for bird watchers. It's an official British bird observatory, but even if you're not interested in our feathered friends, the views and the scenery still impress. The Isle of Man's other great heritage transport system is the Manx Electric Railway. The line was built in conjunction with the road, and the first section here was opened in 1893, with the then highly modern traction system of electricity.
Well, here we are aboard the Manx Electric Railway. 1¼ hours between Douglas and the second town of the island, which is Ramsey. As you can see, it's pretty rickety, but the views are truly spectacular.
First major stop is Laxey. The line from Douglas to here was completed in 1894. It's at Laxey that passengers can change for the Snaefell Mountain Railway, which sadly was not yet open for the summer season. But Laxey has one other major tourist attraction. The Great Laxey Wheel was built in 1854 and is the largest working water wheel in the world at 72.5 feet in diameter. She's named the Lady Isabella after the wife of the then Lieutenant Governor of the Isle of Man. The wheel was built to pump water from the Laxey mines, which once accounted for half of the British Isles zinc production, as well as vast quantities of lead and silver. Today, she's just another fine example of the skill and ingenuity of Victorian engineers. Back on the Manx Electric Railway, it's the last part of this transport odyssey as number 20 takes us on to the port of Ramsgate. On a grey spring day, it's hard to believe that the Manx second town is known as Royal Ramsay. In 1847, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert made an unscheduled stop here because of rough weather. The Queen did not go ashore. Obviously, she was not amused. And come to think of it, neither were we. But there was still the Mountain Railway, the Groundle Glen Railway and the horse trams to see. Well, maybe next time.